first two examples we're going to look at with exponential growth has to do with population. In general, population grows at an exponential rate, at least globally or in big areas, not necessarily in small areas like a town. But over big areas, growth of a population tends to be exponential. So this came from a real study in 1969. At the time, there were 3.6 billion people in the world, and it was growing at a rate of 2%. So if you notice, the number that went in front of the E, which was P, the way we labeled it before, that's our initial amount, how much we started with. So we started with 3.6 billion people, and this, the R, is the rate at which we're growing, 2%. So this was the model they came up with for the growth of the world population in billions X years after 1969. Then it said estimate the number of people in 2020. The reason they were concerned about this is they had just done a study that they believed said that the Earth couldn't really sustain any more than 10 billion people. And they were concerned that we're going to reach that number relatively quickly. Because they were concerned that with food and other resources, 10 billion was just the max that we could handle. So, this is very straightforward. If we want to estimate the number of people in 2020, okay, f of x would be the number of people we're trying to find. And we're trying to find it in 2020, so we need to plug in something for x, because x is the number of years after 1969. Well, 2020 happens 51 years after 1969. So I just plug 51 in there. And then you just plug it in your calculator. 3.6 times E raised to the 0.02 times 51. Hit enter, and we get 9.98 as our answer. So the estimate based on this is that by 2020 we would reach 9.98 billion. So they were concerned that that was going to be the tipping point for our world and its resources. Okay, now let's look at a second model. This is one they came up with in the year 2000. Population didn't grow quite as quickly as they thought. So now we have a new model that was created in the year 2000. Okay, notice the population was 6 billion at this time, and that the growth rate had slowed down to 1.3%. Remember, to change from a decimal to a percent, you just move the decimal 2 places. So this is, again, our starting point. Our starting amount is 6 billion. That's how many people are on the earth in 2000, give or take. And this is the growth rate. 0.13 means 1.3%. So now we're being asked to model the world's population growth X years after 2000 and estimate the population in 2050. Okay, so again, very straightforward. X represents the number of years after 2000. So if we want to know what it is in 2050, we just plug in 50 for X. And if you plug that in your calculator, you get a result of 11.49. So that means 11.49 billion people would be the estimate for the year 2050 based on this graph, or based on this model.